Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge and thank the Lekwungen and the Kasabsam people for allowing us to have this lecture and meaningful debate on their lands. We do this to honor their culture, their history, and their wisdom. Back then, if people wanted to invest, there was always a middleman, usually a licensed professional with the required education and knowledge on how the markets work. A characteristic of innovative technology is breaking down barriers. And thanks to apps like Robinhood and Wealthsimple, the middlemen are bypassed, and we see the rise of retail traders like those on Wall Street bets. We will look through the lens of utilitarianism and total consequentialism to show that if the public starts trading on their own, it would decrease our overall happiness. Our team will argue with the following claims. Number 1. Our human nature leads us to repeat history. Wall Street bets might view hedge funds as an enemy, but in our eyes, they are just the same. Number 2. As a group, we lack the financial knowledge for retail trading. Number 3. A majority of Wall Street Bets members are not sophisticated traders, but are subject to manipulation and groupthink, especially because they're on a social media platform. Number 4. Although we argue for regulation, we dislike people telling us what to say on social media and where to put our money. And so we believe trading your own money should be regulated from right to privilege.
Human beings can lie, cheat, and commit crimes for their own financial gain. Goodness is not ubiquitous, and humans are fickle creatures. Our team is arguing that market manipulation must be regulated. Without regulations in place, there are simply more opportunities for market crashes. This will likely happen again. Sandel explained that during the stock market crash of 2008, the ultimate injustice the American people faced in this case was that they were taxed in order to essentially save the large corporations and avoid complete economic ruin. It is not far-fetched to think that groups like Reddit's Wall Street Bets could bring about another disaster similar to the stock market crash of 2008. Moreover, in Crime and Punishment in the Marketplace, Accountants and Business Executives Repeating History, Reinstein and others examined cases of business fraud and said that, quote, "While utilitarian thinking can be problematic, it certainly condemns business malfeasance since only a very few stand to gain while many lose," end quote. Wall Street Bets versus the hedge fund managers serves as an example of this, as for little gain there was detrimental loss. Sandel discusses Bentham's theory of utilitarianism and says, quote, "Maximizing utility is a principle not only for individuals, but also for legislators," end quote. We support this statement, and we do believe that regulation is needed in order to keep our economy safe and secure. When we once again examine the stock market crash of 2008, it is clear that the loss was far greater than the gain, and ultimately it was the American taxpayers that suffered. Although the Reddit versus Wall Street battle did not have the same resounding impact, the final result could have been similar to what we experienced in 2008. Focusing on the principle of utilitarianism and ensuring that the majority is protected is the most ethical decision. A volatile market creates a volatile economy, creating an unsafe financial environment and imminent risk for everyone.
Between 30 and 40 years from now, you will be eligible to begin to withdraw on a monthly basis the approximately $500,000 the Canada Pension Plan will have saved for you, even though your contribution to this fund will have only been approximately $200,000. That substantial gap is made up because the CPP invests its money in the worldwide financial markets. Virtually every pension plan that I'm aware of does the same thing. It invests in the worldwide financial markets. I'm guessing here that you believe that secure funding of your retirement years is important. I'm further guessing that most of you did not know how the CPP and other pension plans work. Another question. When you borrow money to buy a car or to mortgage a house, do you know how it is that financial institutions find that money to give to you? Beyond the basics, probably not. But the answer is, once again, these so-called financial markets. Markets that consist of bonds, equities, private and public debt, and so much more. So how is it that we know so little about the financial markets' work when they are so important to us? It's not just a Canadian problem. Recent studies from such far-flung places as Iran to the Czech Republic to Canada point out this gap. The researchers all agree financial literacy must be taught in schools. Financial literacy might have prevented that poor American boy's suicide after he invested in GameStop's stock. Financial literacy will help to make all of us understand better why the financial markets exist in the first place. And financial literacy will help to counter the very real threats that misinformation on the internet makes to the smooth functioning of the markets upon which our society relies, and the dangers of groups such as the Reddit group and others of distorting the markets in such a way as to make their functioning non-viable.
Our position uses Bentham and Mills's utilitarian ethic, and it's strengthened by recent studies that show unhindered online forums actually increase the probability of cognitive biases and harmful speech. Mostert argues in his peer-reviewed paper that big tech platforms have become the gatekeepers of today's public forums. The platforms should then have special obligations or a duty of care towards users who generate speech and content on their platforms. He likens this to the state's duty of monitoring civil demonstrations in the public square, appropriately acting to ensure public safety. Without such oversight, the faceless free-for-all activities on social media attracts bad actors and tends toward pockets of mob-like behavior. A utilitarian ethic exposes the immoral nature of not having the same rules of civility and law that exist in real-world gatherings applied equally to people within internet forums. Mostert argues the impossibility of uniformly quashing the activities of specific bad actors, suggesting it's fairer to impart a holistic, broad restriction of bad behavior. Sandel notes that even Kant's idea of freedom condones limiting this kind of discursive space, because echo chambers corrupt audiences with cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias that limit autonomous choice, so people are used as ends to accomplish questionable acts. A dataset of 2 million posts by 4 million Parler users shows that less regulation on the platform festered warped and harmful discourse like conspiracy theories, incel subculture, and Trump disinformation. These develop into negative real-world behaviors. So when the public makes trades based on reading Reddit forums, they don't have all the information and risk their own money at the whim of groupthink and manipulation. Therefore, as a public platform, Reddit has the teleological responsibility to limit any speech involving such risky coordination.
So we believe posting on Reddit or similar platforms should be the same. Reddit users have the freedom to post and express their opinions on social network platforms. However, they will have to be educated and regulated for the greater good. In the previous section, we've illustrated the theory of utilitarianism, which can also be called as consequentialist. In this section, this theory will be reapplied. For greater good and more people's benefits and interests, some regulations and restrictions will have to be conducted on user posting behavior on social network platforms. They have the right to express opinions, but they will also need to understand this right cannot be a pure right. It needs to be regulated to be a privilege. I want to introduce you to the concept of right versus privilege. Here we will use driving as an example. As we all know, you can't drive just because you want to. You have to acquire a driver license first. In order to get one, you have to learn all the rules and regulations. Most of the safe driving is considering how others drive. You will have some freedom when driving, but you also have a limitation that restrict you within the freedom, like the speed limits. Driving is not a right, but a privilege. This could be the same concept we apply on our topic today. In another word, limitation within freedom. According to the Civil Liberties in the United States, an article has differentiated the distinction between right and privilege. These two words are interrelated, but according to the article, a privilege is a right that can be withdrawn by the government at any time. Driving is definitely one of them.
We believe that denying people their individual right for trading would harm their personal rights. But our correlation with each other is just too great for us to ignore the consequences.